Circle of Hope pastors here. We have Julie, Rachel, Ben, and I'm Johnny, and we also have our executive producer Kristen and our producer Luke here with us. In case you're wondering what those extra boxes are on the bottom of the screen, which some of you may be, we're trying to answer questions that people ask us in a conversational format. We hope that it's helpful to you. The question at hand today is, why would I read the Old Testament? Now, the Old Testament is like the first section of the Christian Bible. It's also the Hebrew Bible. So it's complicated for a lot of people to read. So that's why we're answering it. Rachel, why do you read the Old Testament?
Well, I really like the stories like about Hagar, of God looking out and providing for the underdog, the outcast, the oppressed person. And of course, the Hebrews were that people group too. So God kept showing up for these people who were really in need. I like that.
Yeah, Hagar was the woman that didn't get chosen as the channel of blessing, the one that would be the mother of all of the most important of God's people. But that didn't mean that she didn't get taken care of. It's this cool story. Where is that in Genesis, y'all? Do you remember the number so people can look it up?
I think it's in the 20s.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right.
And Hagar gives birth to Ishmael, and there's a promise given to her and a great nation there too. So God is doing a lot of cool things in the Old Testament.
But she's an example of that kind of that underdog thing, definitely. And and that is like, there's so much in the Old Testament about how like these people are the underdogs. Like that's their whole identity. It's all about Exodus. They weren't anything until they were liberated from Egypt.
That's right.
Check that out in the book of Exodus 15.
Freaking Egyptians. I'm an Egyptian.
Johnny's Egyptian.
Before you report me to Google.
Yeah. Julie, why do you read the Old Testament?
Well, that's the whole story of the Old Testament, is God pursuing his people. And it changes over time and place. But that's the overarching message of how God relates and pursues a relationship with his people.
Relentlessly.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, God's steadfast love is the theme of the Old Testament through all of the crap and all of their unfaithfulness. This community is still chosen, and God figures out a way to deliver them into his desires for them.
In the Old Testament, I like to say that God's compassion is longer than God's anger. And so we still have this theme of redemption and grace and forgiveness and inclusion despite the misdeeds of Israel. Israel in the Old Testament's biggest sin is when they worship other gods and when they ally with foreign nations and kings to try to collect power and replace what God has given them. In the community that Moses created, God is providing everything. Israel gets into trouble when it tries to provide stuff for itself using worldly ideas. And the prophets are imagining. That's what we're working with in the Sunday meetings right now on North Broad Street. The prophets are helping Israel reimagine how to see the world without getting caught up in all of the mechanisms that lead to doom.
And we need that type of imagination because we have made alliances with other powers, even other gods. Like
that's right.
And sometimes it's an oppressive God that we are under the power of, and we can't get free of it, and we need to be liberated, and our minds need to be transformed so that we can think about something in a new way, in a way that's not just about collecting power. Collecting power is the religion of our culture. And we need to be freed from it. And these people are our ancestors that had the same struggle but also the same success. It continually, let's reframe it. Maybe it's going to take us 100 years, but no, now again, we are going to dedicate ourselves to the Lord. And we are going to remember who we are and who God is and what God has done. And that will dictate everything we do. We're going to depend solely on God.
Yeah, keep coming back to that identity again and again and again. And repenting when they forget. They forget who they are and who God is to them.
one of the helpful things about reading the Old Testament for me as well is it's a pretty vast collection of material, and it has different genres, different emotions, different ideas happening in it. And it contains a lot of our common experiences now that you wonder if you should have. You know, if you wonder if everything around you is meaningless and toiling under the sun, there's a book for that. It's right in the Bible.
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah. So, and then also there's a dialogue happening. We say in Circle of Hope, a dialogue of love holds us together, not a set doctrine, for example, but the dialogue in the Old Testament is dialogical, conversational, because sometimes there's sections of it that disagree theologically with other sections, and that interchange, I think, helps us be a community as opposed to a series of rule followers. So even as you're reading the Old Testament and you come across a passage that seems crazy or different than what you think or what God is leading you to do, that's okay, because that dialogue doesn't put you out of step.
You're right. You're right in step with the text, because the text is doing that dialogue too. That's one reason that people write it off, is because it has that kind of those idiosyncrasies, those descriptions of things that we can't imagine, because it's just like talking to people from the 5th century BC is essentially talking to an alien. Right. You know, they're just totally different people, and we can't comprehend it. Yeah, that's fine. It's okay.
And when you open yourself up to that, you'll even see how in the New Testament there's the same kind of dialogue happening. It really does teach you how to read the whole Bible, and that's probably the main reason I read it.
And I would argue they are a lot like us, even though they can seem real alien, just in the different. Even I'm thinking of the prophets going back and forth, even with each other, like it would be like me disagreeing with myself an hour later, having this conversation. I think people are still like that. We're still working it out. We get different ideas in different times, and we're having this conversation with God and each other.
Hey, I think we're disagreeing right now. I just said the opposite. No, you're absolutely right. I was thinking more culturally, like what is normal as far as what is alien. But yeah, they're human beings, and that's a reason to read it too. Is like this is some beautiful writing about really raw, soulful human experience from a long time ago, and it'll kind of blow your mind at how much you see yourself in it, and you can see, wow, like the continuity of humanity is even like a transcendent moment for me.
Absolutely. So I hope that this has given you a little bit of reasoning to read the Old Testament. I hope that you can enter into the story like the pastors here have demonstrated. If you want books or other resources to help you engage with the Old Testament or with the Bible, any of your pastors can help you with that. We also have a list of books on the Way of Jesus website. And also, if you have more questions, send them our way, and we'll be glad to answer them. If you think this would be useful for other people, share it around. And until next time, peace.